Hello Poker Study Groups members, this is Groups for Groups.com doing a special promotional video for you guys. I received a request in the forums for some videos on 3-bet pots and out of position play. So I'm going to play 3 tables at some lower stakes than usual so that I can experiment playing with a really loose aggressive image. I'm going to just try to get into a ton of pots, play like a real wild man, and just make adjustments. So, we've defended here. This guy has shown no interest in the pot. He probably has some sort of showdown value, but by betting the full pot, we give him very bad odds to call, and that means he has to fold all his ace highs. And even some of the pairs that he was calling with, planning to, get to showdown, we're just not going to let that happen. When this player leads out, I think it's very likely that our top pair is good, although our opponent probably has some good amount of equity in this pot. So given that he has a lot of equity, we want to charge him to make it to the river. Here, I'm not a huge fan of the call with the king-jack suited, but we're trying to get into spots, so I'm going to sacrifice my regular hand ranges a little bit for the sake of just getting involved. Here, we flop the flush draw, clearly. I didn't like the turn with the 7-4-5, and he still bet twice, so I'm just going to let him have it. With the flush draw, we flat call because there's a lot of good turns for us. We can also represent a lot of things if he checks on the turn. So it's a good spot to float with various draws, planning to rep other draws. Here we can represent the Jack-10, and yeah, that's what we're going to do. I wouldn't be surprised to get hero called here sometimes. But if you're going to be playing a lot of hands and you're going to be trying to mess with people with position, you do have to take advantage of it by betting when they show a low level of interest in the pot. I do apologize that there will be moments of slow speech. It's the end of a long day, and I put in a pretty heavy session. But I figured, I've seen you guys have been contributing to me by giving me requests, and I wanted to return the favor by actually coming through on my word and making some content. So with the King-9, definitely could bet for value, but given it's three-handed, there's a good chance someone's going to try to take a stab at it if I show weakness. So I'm just going to check and see what happens. And not a huge fan of what's going on right now. Book and RU could have a worse king. He could also have a 9. So I'm just going to play it slow and try to, evaluate as the hand plays out. Ace-Jack, this board is terrible, and it hits a lot of his calling range. So rather than getting check raised, I'm just going to check back and give up. Ace-King, I'm going to slow play. I don't 3-bet a lot from the big blind. And this is just really weird. I mean, Bookin is probably calling because he thinks he has the other guy beat. And I don't know if he's worried about me. I'm going to fold because Bookin's clearly not folding. And he's showing that he doesn't really care that I'm still in the pot. So I feel like he could have a big hand. 3's full is going to be good for sure. That's a really unlucky turn for both Bookin and for me. Because if Bookin had folded his hand on the turn, I definitely would have given action to that player. And Bookin was calling down with a worse king. So yeah, if that spot was heads up, I definitely would have just put all my money in. But by check calling, because I allow the other player to blast with air, whereas if I bet out myself, he's folding all the pocket pairs and stuff that I have smashed. Just so that I follow through with my plan for the video, I'm going to bring up Poker Stove and show a range for 3-betting. I'll bring it back over in a second. Just to give you guys an idea of what ranges are out there for 3-betting. If you're facing a relatively tight player, their 3-bet is probably going to be around 4%. A 4% 3-bet includes these hands: 10s plus, ace king suited, and ace queen suited, although some players will substitute in pocket 9s instead of the ace queen suited, but you see you have about 4%. It's going to be a tight 3-betting range. And if you see someone who has a 4% 3-bet range, you shouldn't be trying to 4-bet bluff them. You shouldn't be calling, trying to outplay them, be it in position or out of position. You should only call if you have a good hand to crack a big hand, suited connector, small pair, and you should tread very cautiously post-flop against these types of players, because I mean they really have it, and there's not a whole lot of reason that you should get in their way. This hand would be okay to 3-bet, but this guy's playing really tight, so here with the ace 10, I'm just going to dump it. So now I'm going to widen the 3-bet range and include some bluffs. Let's see, look at that. I'm trying to get up to 6%. I didn't have to change much. In the case of a polarized 6% 3-bet range, you're looking at someone probably semi-bluffing with the deuces through 4s and 10s plus, ace queen for value. If you're looking at someone who has a wide value range for 3-betting, that 3-bet 6%, you're probably looking at something like this. Still pretty tight, and you don't want to go out of your way to mess with players who are only 3-betting 6%. It's an automatic c-bet. I'm the pre-flop raiser. I'm more likely to have an ace than the pre-flop caller is. And given that we're going to do some 3-betting, why not get started with the queen 9 off? And I'm going to show you the range that I'm going to try to stick with for 3-betting in this video, because I want to 3-bet wide so that we can play a lot of 3-bet pots. I'm definitely going to have a reasonably wide value range. I'm definitely also going to have a lot of semi-bluffs and a lot of hands that I'm using for blockers. Here I would c-bet, but given that there's a third player in the pot who cold called the 3-bet, he's often going to have 9s through jacks. The other hand he can have is ace king. So once he checks, having had a chance to stab on the turn, I'm going to assume that he has a big ace and that he's going to fold to a bet here. As for the pre-flop raiser, I think he would have stabbed as well with a strong hand to protect it. And what I did there was I used my position to gather information about the opponent's hands before deciding whether or not to take a shot at the pot. It wasn't a great board for continuation betting, as it hits a lot of the caller's ranges. Just looking if we have history. And he's not on any other table, so we're going to treat this in a vacuum. I'm just going to call and play my hand post-flop and hammer here. But yeah, by gathering that information, I was able to deduce that no one had anything, and I would have a good chance of picking up the pot. Here I'm going to call one time because I think he is 3-betting me with a lot of hands that don't have a king in them. I mean, like, not that many, but like ace, queen, jacks, 10s, 9s, and I think he's going to shut down once I call the flop if he doesn't have a king. If he continues betting, I'm going to fold. And when he checks, I don't see any value in betting. It's very unlikely I'm going to get sucked out if I have the best hand. I'm facing at most 3 outs. So I'd rather check and give myself a chance to get value on the river. Just have a better chance of getting my hand to showdown. It's very unlikely, but he could be planning to check raise the turn. I think there's a good chance he has tens or jacks, but I don't think he's going to call a bet with them. If I knew this player better, I might take a shot, try to get some value. But given that I have no real read and we've only played 20 hands, I prefer to just check back and show my hand down. There's some value there to be seen. Had I 4-bet the queens, I would not have gotten action. Whereas by flat calling, I allowed myself to potentially win a big pot should my opponent have hit top pair with a jack. If he hits with the ace, I'm not going to get much action. Now he has a 3-bet of about 11%, but this over it's super tiny sample. Given that he had ace jack off as a 3-betting hand though, I'm going to assume he has a wide value range for 3-betting, and in that case it's very smart to slow play big pairs because he can flop a lot of second best hands. In the case where your opponent has a very polarized 3-betting range, you're better off 4-betting your big hands that you want to go with. If he has some value part of his range, he's going to stack it off. And if he's bluffing with the polarized bluff end of his range, whatever you want to call it, he's only going to give you action if he flops like 2-pair anyway. So if you slow play and he flops 1-pair, he's not going to just go bluff his chips off. So you might as well just 4-bet against the guys who have a polarized range, because you can assume you'll get it in good a lot, whereas against the guys who have a wide value range, you want to try to trap them, because when they flop good, they don't really know what to do. Anyway, I guess I'm still working out the range I want to be 3-betting, so I'm almost done. We're going to be trying to get into a lot of 3-bet pots. Okay. On the dry boards, I'm going to be c-betting a lot. I think at these limits, players play relatively poorly in 3-bet pots. They like to flat the 3-bet a lot, just trying to flop something big, and if they don't flop big, then they just give up. So c-betting at a very high frequency, between 70 and 90% in 3-bet pots, is definitely profitable at these limits against most of your opponents. Here, he could have an ace, he could have a flush draw, and he could have a straight draw. The only hand that connected is Jack 10. Just trying to go with the speed of his calls, whether or not he has a draw or not. I feel like he has a pair, so I'm going to bet, but not too big. If he snap folds, then clearly I was wrong, and he had the draw. Given that he thought about it, it's possible that he had a pair. I'm not sure. That was a close spot. But either way, the turn I think is a mandatory bet. He's going to call with a lot of hands that we're beating. That being, this guy probably flopped decent. I'm just going to call. Anyway, yeah, he's calling with a lot of hands that we're beating. Pair of aces. Well, given that he checked, I'm just going to bet and probably win the pot. The flush draws, and he's probably going to let me know if he made a straight by raising if he has Jack 10. So I can bet fold pretty comfortably. I can bet to get a lot of value from other hands and further define his hand range so that I can get a better feeling of, quote unquote, where I'm at in the hand. By checking, I give him the option of taking a free card if he has a draw. I also, if I check and call, I don't know what he's got, and I don't know if he's going to barrel again with bluffs. And I just, kind of keep myself in the dark. And I'm a very big, whatever, let's 3-bet. This, especially because the guy's like short stack, this is not a good spot to 3-bet. But we just want to play some 3-bet pots for the sake of education, so I don't mind. You could definitely be isolating the limp or light, and he has already shown that he's a loose player, so he's going to have a wide range. a wide range that could definitely hit this flop, so not interested. But yeah, I'm a big advocate of trying to gather as much information about your opponent's hand before the river so that you can make the best decision when you either have 100% equity or 0 equity. I guess I'll blast because he should have done something with a flush draw. He should have at least thought about it. The way he snap checked the turn, I don't think he's that strong. And once again, that's just using possession to gain information. Anyway, the range that I'm going to try to be 3-betting is this one. It's 12%. It's got a fairly wide value range at the top. Well, not too wide. Ace. We're looking at like the aces, kings, queens, jacks, ace, kings, and ace, queen are our value hands. The ace, jack, king, 10, ace, 10 are semi-bluff hands because we have blockers. When we have an ace, it's 50% less likely our opponent has a hand with an ace. Same with a king, so whatever, you know, us having like king, jack eliminates a lot of kings and jacks from the possibilities of hands they could have. So those are good hands to semi-bluff with. The strong suited connectors we're also going to semi-bluff with because it's very difficult for our opponents to put us on those hands when we've 3-bet, and we can get paid on flops where our opponent will have difficulty believing that, you know, we hit a 4, 5, 6 or a 5, 6, 9 flop hard enough to bet 3 streets when he's assuming we have, you know, big pairs and ace kings. The small suited aces we're going to 3-bet because A, we have blockers, B, if we're in aggressive enough games where people are playing loose enough, there's a very good chance that an ace is the best hand, and the suitedness is very good for picking up more post-flop semi-bluffing opportunities, flush draws, stuff like that. And we're starting to build a dynamic with this aggressive player. I 3-bet because I had a blocker, and because I know that given he's an unaggressive player, if I flat call, he's just going to put a lot of pressure on me post-flop. So I elected to 3-bet there, and he 4-bet, and hopefully he keeps doing that because eventually we're going to have the goods, and maybe we'll get action. Now this guy is 3-betting 6%, which, as I said earlier, is a fairly reasonable range. So given that he's 3-betting a fair range and he's not out of line, I'm not going to play back at him. Finally, the 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, maybe 6s, maybe we take out the 5s and 6s. We're going to do these as a semi-bluff as well for pretty much the exact same reasons that we're 3-betting the small suited aces. There's just a good chance we have the best hand, and we're going to semi-bluff because, again, if we hit the flop that we're looking for with the deuces, 3s, 4s, it's going to be just about impossible for our opponents to put us on a hand. And if they decide to slow play a big pair or something, or a medium pair, where the board looks pretty innocent, they're going to have a hard time laying down. So that's the range, and we're just going to try to put a lot of pressure on our opponents. This guy's a nit. He's playing really tight, so rather than 3-bet him, I'm going to use my position. This is a bad flop for a very tight player, so I'm going to bet it when check 2 and hopefully steal the pot. Which hands you're flat calling, which hands you're 3-betting, which hands you're folding. It all really comes down to what type of opponent you're up against. Like this bottom left table, we have a bunch of nits. We're just going to play really loose and try to just run over and try to win all the blinds. The top right table, we have some loose players. Donk bets are usually weak, so I'm going to raise. The only thing that's bad about this for me is that he could be leading with a draw that he's intending to bet 3-bet all in. In that case, I'm in trouble. Both draws got there. Given that he bet called, I think he has a hand, at least a jack or a draw. So I'm going to take my free shot at the nut flush draw, which is probably going to brick. But at least I'm going to see it for free because I don't think he's folding if I bet that turn. So I'm just burning money by doing anything there. Now I could go crazy and ship it in because I have the ace of hearts and I know he can't have the nut flush. But I don't think I'd ever check back the turn with the nut flush. So if he's any sort of a thinking player, he's going to know that what I'm trying to represent doesn't make any sense, and he's going to find the call button. So I'm going to pass there. I don't love the flop raise, but I'm just trying to mix it up. Anyway, it looks like I found a game that's going to be a little better than this Nit Fest here. And sure, we got this one too. So I'm going to substitute out the games where not a lot of action is happening and bring in some ones where we can expect more fun. And here we're just going to pardon my French. We're just going to do the semi-bluff. Flop a flush draw, obviously continuation bet. His range for calling a 3-bet is probably something like jacks through 7s and ace queen. He can't have liked that flop that much, and if he does have one of the hands that likes it, such as a medium pair, but I continue to fire buck shots as the hand progresses. Oh, didn't get on that game. Yeah, if I continue to Scalac buckshots, he's not really going to be able to stand up to the pressure, and eventually he's going to have to lay his hand down. So that's why I continuation bet on that board, and that's why I had no intention of slowing down if he called me. Okay, so this looks like the nittiest game. So we're going to take this one out and bring this one. This guy is very loose, very spewy. I'm going to call, play position. Don't really have a game plan pre-flop, but based on what board comes down and what actions my opponent decides to take, I'm going to figure out my game plan. I don't think he has much, but I think he's the kind of guy who's only going to fire one shell anyway. And if he's bluffing, he's done with his bluff. So I'm not going to get any more value from this bluff by slow playing. And there are a couple of bad cards for me, both that kill my action or that make me not the best hand. So I'd rather take control there, put the pressure on, and then figure out what I want to do. Here, board's pretty dry. Pretty unlikely he has a king or 6-7. So, given that there's not a lot of hands he can call my continuation bet with, I am going to fire a continuation bet. And this guy is calling me really fast, which means either a weak hand or a draw. I don't want to play the guessing game if I check the river. So I'm going to place a bet that's half blocker, half value. He will call with some hands that beat me. He will call with some hands that I beat. But if he raises me, he has a flush. And if I were playing my normal game, I'm going to fold here 100%. But I just want to show you guys that even, when you're getting these amazing odds on the river, when you're sure you're beat because you made a blocker bet that's going to say, well, now I look like an idiot. Thanks for doing a stupid bluff, Milonis. I'll finish my thought. Hope you guys get a good laugh from this. But yeah, as I was saying, when you make, if I'd made a normal size bet, like a 3/4 pot bet, we'll say, and he had raised me, I'm beat 100% there. I think the only reason he tried to bluff raise was because I did that really small bet and I gave him room to bluff. But what I was trying to point out with that play is that if you bet the right amount such that your opponents will call you with hands you beat and even call with some hands that beat you, but they need a very strong hand to raise, you should fold even when you're getting very good odds, because You bet the amount that you would have been happy to call, assuming you had the best hand. And you know, they're letting you know that they can beat you. And if your gut's telling you that they have you beat, even if the price is amazing, you should make those folds, because at the end of the day, the river is where all the big bets go down, and you want to be playing your best poker on the river, saving where you can. And yeah, I 3-bet here with the ace-9. Don't love it. Definitely think flat calling's better, especially against this type of player who's kind of loose but somewhat predictable. Here with the jacks, I believe I called pre-flop, and given that the pre-flop raiser didn't c-bet, I'm going to assume I have him beat, and I'm going to get some information about the other guy's hand by betting. Aces, obviously a raise. And this Jack 9-7 board is just kind of too coordinated, too many gut shots, too many different hands that he could peel me with if I bet, or check raise. So rather than continuation betting, I elect to take a free card. He check calls, and he's shown us the last hand that he's really spazzy. So I'm going to check back, and I might even call the river. He could have a 6-7 or a 5. He could also have a king or an 8. But given that he's so spazzy, I think I'm going to pay him off. And he has nothing. And this guy's just really, showing us his true colors. Aces. This player is very aggressive. His aggression is infinite. So I'm just going to check and call and check and call and check and call. Against these aggressive players, you have to let them bluff. You can't scare them out of the pot. So don't check raise and don't fire big bets. Just check and call and let them blast the stack away. It's the way to play against these aggressive players. And if he's got me, good for him. Majority of the time, aces are good here. So I'm fine with checking and calling. And I think my equity's good enough, like I'm generally far enough ahead, that I don't need to worry about protecting my hand. Occasionally he will have the straight draw, but a good chunk of the time he'll be drawing completely dead. A good chunk of the time he'll have 2 outs. A good chunk of the time I'm dead anyway. But I mean, you just close your eyes, you click check, you click call, and sometimes they'll fire off their whole stack with the ace-4 for no real reason. I don't know why he bet the river. If he was trying to make me fold, if he thought he had the best hand, I really don't know. But against those type of players who are very aggressive, you just got to let them do their thing. This game's all about using people's tendencies against them, figuring out what style they play, and taking advantage of that. So, yeah, it's unfortunate I haven't got into more 3-bet pots, because I know that was the whole purpose of the video. Here, I like to 3-bet, but the opener's really short stacked, so there's not a lot of money behind to make plays. I don't know what happened pre-flop here. I raised, he's donking. Well, then he's getting raised. And I think the king-jack I would have liked to 2-barrel, but I was too busy trying to figure out what the fuck was going on with this ace-9. I think he has flush draws and medium pocket pairs. I don't think he leads with a 6, and I don't think he has a boat. So I'm going to fire reasonably big here, and I'm going to shove the river to put on maximum pressure. And that really sucks that the river was a deuce of diamonds, because it makes the flush. But given that he snap called, I don't think he has the flush draw. I really think he has that medium pair. So I am going to hope that the diamond scared him, but didn't. Let's see what we can learn from this hand. So I correctly ranged him on the flop, and on the turn I think our play was good. Our hand is pretty irrelevant. The only reason we're making a play is because he let out. If he had just... Oh, this guy's loose. Let's 3-bet him. And we'll 3-bet him here. Hope he spazzes. Gets frustrated with us. The river should be a check just because the diamond got there. I think on any other river, it's good to fire it off. We're repping like jacks are better. Oh, we'll fire once just so that he doesn't steal the pot from us with like 8s or 9s or ace high. If we check and call, we have no idea what he has. At least by betting, if he calls, we have a good idea of what he has, and we can determine our contingency plan or plan for the rest of the hand. Yeah, we're repping jacks through aces. And given that he let out, called the raise, and check called the turn very fast, I don't think he ever has a hand that can beat an overpair. So if the river's a brick, I think shipping the rest in is very good. There's about 50 in the middle. We're betting 45. It's about a pot size bet. It's not good odds for him to call. He has to be right at least, I believe it's 1 out of 3 to be correct. It's for it to be a profitable call, and most guys just don't have it in them to make the call with the 7 for a pot size bet on the river. I don't know what's going on the bottom, but it looks like I got scammed. No big deal. So yeah, and we pick up a nice pot by making him fold there. We get 100 big blinds since there's 50 out there. And yeah, he just, I mean, he can't call. These donk bets, I don't know. I mean, this guy could be like really sick and have noticed that I spazzed out when this guy donked into me. But I don't think that's the case. I think, once again, the guy probably just has a weak hand. So he's leading into me, trying to either figure out where he's at or freeze me. And I'm just not going to stand for that, you know? It's a bullshit play and deserves to be punished. Now, given that he bet and called the flop for a decent sized raise, I don't think he has a gut shot, and I don't think he has ace high. I believe he either has a king or a 7, given that he called. And since the turn pair at the 7, I don't expect he's folding anything, so I need to shut down. Anyway, let's see what he had. If he has ace high, I'm a fish. And if he has a 3, well, very impressive call on the flop. I was going to bet the turn if it didn't pair the board. Unfortunately, it did. So, yeah. Okay, we got 3-bet. We have ace jack. The button has not 3-bet yet, and the button is not a crazy loose player. This is a hand that you do not want to continue with. If you call and flop a pair, you don't know where you're at. You're going to miss most of the time and have to check fold anyway. And even if you do like hit your ace, he could still have a bigger ace. And against a tight 3-better, that's going to be pretty commonplace. And if you flop a jack, you could still be against an overpair. Against players who are 3-betting looser, your best play is probably to 4-bet. This, on the other hand, we're going to play. Because you have good blockers, and if they 5-bet you, it's probably not with a worse hand. Whereas by flat calling against a loose player, you're still playing out of position. It's going to be hard to hit the flop, and it's really easy to get outplayed. It's just so hard to play pots out of position. Fact. Whereas with the ace-queen, this guy's 3-betting a little wider. We flop no equity. We're not going to float. And this guy's 3-betting again. He's actually seeming to kick it up. So I'll flat for shits, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's really tough to play profitably out of position. I mean, let's see. I flop 2 overs and a flush draw, and I'm probably still going to find a way to get owned here. I mean, because if he has ace-king, he's firing 1 bullet and giving up. And if he has an overpair, I'm smashed. But I flopped equity. There's 20 out there. I'm going to end up putting in 40 to win 100, which is decent odds if one of my overcards is good. then I'm definitely getting the right price. If I have purely a flush draw, it's a very small losing proposition, so I'm going to have about 33 to 35% equity. And I'm putting in 40 to win 60, so it's decent odds. But yeah, we're gonna see. I mean, he's probably gonna have an overpair. I'm probably gonna be totally smashed, even though I have like the perfect board for me. And this is why you need to be very careful with what hands you play 3-bet pots with. His play is atrocious with ace king, and he should fold to the check raise on the flop. But I mean, you see how lucky I had to get for that pot to work out in my favor. Now, if I know the guy's stacking off ace king, then of course I should get in there. My implied odds are very high in 3-bet pots, but yeah, it's just you if you're gonna play 3-bet pots by defending with like speculative stuff, you have to be playing with your gut shots. You have to be playing with any pair. You have to be playing with your overcards. You have to be playing with a lot of stuff, and it's just really difficult. So the best method, I mean, what's the guy's problem? Why is he so mad? Here I'm going to slow play. I'll explain why later. Here this turn bet's kind of weak. I'm going to slap some pressure on it, and we're going to win. And I mean, I think this guy has air, so I'll check. And if he got lucky with a 5, cool. But the reason I didn't re-raise the flop is it's such a dry board, and he's raising me blind versus blind. There's not a lot of hands he would really raise with there. I think if he had a king, he's flat calling a lot. If he has a set, he's probably slow playing. So for the most part, he has air, and that's why re-raising would serve no purpose. I need a flat call, let him keep bluffing. We see he has 10-9. He has total air. Okay, so this guy's mad at me. I don't really like 4-bet getting it in with 2 jacks, but this guy hates me right now, and it's only 25-50 cents, so whatever. Okay, that flop can hit him a lot, but I think he would have 5-bet me with the bigger pairs, so I'm going to bet and get it in if he wants to get it in, and assume we're like flipping. Like he probably has like pair and gutter, or overs and flush draw, or pair and flush draw, or something. Like if he gets it in here, he's probably got a good piece. But I mean, I think he would have put me in pre-flop with queens plus. So unless he flopped a set or 2 pair, I have the best hand. So let's run it. And he did flop a set. That's going to happen sometimes. And again, why you need to be very careful in 3-bet and 4-bet pots. See, I mean, even the reg knows that it's really fishy to call re-raises with suited connectors, especially out of position. So the best method to combat 3-betters for the most part is to just fold, call with your strong range. You know, your ace-queen suited, your ace-jack suited, possibly your king-queen suited. Against the looser guys, you can go down to ace-10 suited, ace-9 suited. And 4-bet your good hands, get it in. Again, some guys slow play with your big hands, like your aces, kings, queens. But definitely don't worry about flatting with the 7-8 suited, 4-betting the 7-8 suited, 9-10 suited, and crap like that. Like you really don't need to do that. I know 3-betting, calling 3-bets, defending 3-bets, 3-betting, like it's a very hot topic these days. It's very popular, and people are very big on playing 3-bet pots. But the fact is, if your game is solid in the single raise pots, and you know you can hold your own in the 3-bet pots, by just playing tight and playing solid, you're gonna do fine. Most of the money is not made in 3-bet pots at the lower limits. It's just made by coolering the weak players, maximizing your value, trapping, all the fun stuff. But if you want to worry about 3-betting, you just pick your range you're going to 3-bet. It should vary depend on who the opener is. The looser someone is, the wider your value range should be, the more you should be bluffing in a perfect world. And against the guys who defend tight, you should only fire 1 bullet for the most part, because they're usually continuing with only the hands that are planning to call down. Against somewhere you can put them in a very specific range. You'd fire 2 bullets on times that you think that they're really weighted towards that medium pair that's going to eventually have to fold. I don't think this guy's folded if I keep betting, so I'm just going to take a free card. And yeah, you shouldn't really fire 3 barrels too often. Usually a 3-bet and a C-bet is going to get the job done at very high frequency. And 2 barrels, if used in the right place, will give you great effectiveness. Alright, I don't know what he has, but I beat all the draws, so I might as well show down. If I bet, I guess I'm trying to make him fold like 9s, 10s, or a 7. But I mean, I don't think he has those that much, so just check. E6 is good. And I guess we didn't really play too much out of position too, either. Which also really just stems from poker theory. Poker, you're supposed to beat the man on your right. The chips are supposed to naturally flow to the players in position. He who has the button is much more likely to win the pot than anyone else, unless the other players are throwing on heavy aggression, and it's unlikely the hand's going to make it to showdown. You shouldn't be trying to play very many hands out of position. For the most part, all your speculative plays should be done in position. Your defending blind range should depend on, again, who the opener is. But for the most part, ace jack and ace jack plus, some king queens, the occasional suited connector. That's really all you need to defend. And some big pairs. 9-8 off, the ace 4 and stuff, they're just going to get you into trouble. It's hard enough to hit the flop, and then it's next to impossible to get paid, especially with a marginal hand out of position against a good player. So, I mean, good players are folding between 70 and 90% of their blinds from the small and the big. So, there's nothing wrong with folding a lot from the blinds. Don't worry about getting run over as long as you're applying your fair share of pressure at the occasions you are in position. Cut off, button, whatever. And, just winning those pots where you have that edge, then everything's going to work out. It's much easier to read a hand in position. It's much easier to control the action. See things play out the way you want them to when you have position. So you should really just focus on having position. I really do apologize that I wasn't able to get in more spots, and I wasn't able to play more out of position. I think I tried, but to even get marginally good stuff out of position is not that easy. Now I do have some dynamic with this Bobkin guy. I've 3-bet him a couple times. I don't really want to get 4-bet here with ace queen, because 3-betting and folding sucks, and 5-bet stacking off with ace queen kind of sucks. And given I've 3-bet him a couple times, he might be ready to 4-bet me. So I'm just going to flat call instead. Play my hand as a bluff catcher. And yeah, just take it from there. I think folding the flop is okay, but we have the backdoor on a flush draw. We have 2 overcards, which could be good if we hit them, so I think I would have called once and then made my game plan based on what he did on the turn. Given that he checked, I don't think he loves the flop. I'm going to bet, and if he calls, I'm going to fire a lot of rivers because it's going to be hard for him to call. Here, you know, I do have an ace. I have 3 pair. This guy is pretty crazy, but the fact is he's probably going to fire another bullet on the river. That card really connected well with what's already out there. So there's a decent chance I'm beat. And given that I don't want to call 2 barrels, it's completely burning money to even call the first one. So like, don't get in that trap. Okay, I'll call 1 and fold 2 bets again. No. Predict the action before it happens, and then put in your game plan. If you know it's going to be 2 bets and you aren't prepared to call 2 bets, then fold to the first bet. Or for example, if you're facing a flop bet and you know it's a spot where the guy's going to fire 3 barrels a lot, and you aren't going to call down 3 barrels, just fold to the flop. Get out early while it's cheapest. You know, trust your gut and just go with your information. Here I have no idea what this guy's got. He's really aggro. He could have a jack. He could also have an 8. I guess if I bet $4, he can call me with a pretty wide range. Whereas if I bet 10 or 11, I think most of the hands he calls would actually beat me. So bet sizing important. Here, cheap. And he had a 9. Wow, big flop for him. All right, good flop for us. Going to fire continuation bet. And he has a couple of hands that beat us, being specifically King 10 and Ace 10. Other than that, we're good. I think he would have raised the flop with all 2 pairs and all straights, so I can pretty comfortably bet this, thinking we have the best hand about 90% of the time. And that's really too bad that that's 6 king, because now a lot of the hands he had beat us 7-8, 9-8, 10-8. We do beat Miss Spades and we do beat Jack 10, but that is about it. 6-7 even got there. Yeah, we beat about 1 hand now and lose to like 12, whereas before we lost to 2 hands and beat the 12. So given that we're beat by just about everything, I'm going to let this one go. And even though he's really loose, he hasn't shown himself to be that aggressive. And against those type of players, you really need to give them respect when they do bet, because otherwise you're giving up a lot of money and you're actually not punishing them for playing too loose. If you're giving them action when they hit, then they might as well continue to play loose because it's working for them. You have to not pay them off when they're telling you they have a big hand. Alright, he's not saying anything about a big hand this time, so I'm going to fire a couple and take it down. Alright, last hand for the session. Pop it up. No idea if I won or lost. I probably lost a small bit because of that big bluff on Excuse Me, Sir, where I definitely should have shut down on that river card, and because of the double stack 4-bet pot where our friend who didn't like us very much, Mr. Whatever, flopped a set and snapped us off. But I think I covered a good amount of stuff, and I hope that the video was educational. Yeah, this is a spot where, you know, I probably have the best hand right now, a good chunk of the time, but he's going to fire, 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 lots of bad cards. Lots of things that just not going to see me showing this hand down very often, so I'm just going to let it go. Anyway, this was, you know, kind of an introduction to my style of teaching. My style of teaching. I'm really big on the concepts. I like to just break it down. So if you have any questions or comments, or feel like I didn't elaborate on a specific topic enough, or you'd like me to look at it in more detail, please post on the forum. I'd be very happy to field your questions. Also, let me know what types of videos you would like to see. I know that this one was supposed to be about 3-betting and playing out of position, And I tried, but the spots just really didn't present themselves. But I will still always at least go over the concept before the video starts, so at least some information is given to you guys, whether the examples in play actually present themselves. Anyway, this has been Gripst for Grips.com and Poker Study Groups. I hope you guys get something from this video, and best of luck on the felts. Run good.